She's muted too. So if she's talking right now, we can't hear her.
Unmute yourself, Donna.
And her video's not on.
I bet her computer was blocking all of the stuff, if I had to guess.
Probably. Well, if all else fails, Donna, if you can hear us and you can't get your microphone or anything to work, then just go ahead and use the chat box on the right. And as you have insights, just type them in.
Perfect.
So that you get credit for being here. Okay, let's get going.
Alrighty. Who wants to briefly summarize the case? Anybody?
Okay. I'm going to be typing just so everyone knows. That way when you're talking, if I'm not saying anything at the moment, I'm just typing as fast as I can.
Okay.
We can probably copy and paste stuff too to the...
Yeah, we can copy and paste.
Especially stuff like the summary.
Yeah.
Okay, so I can summarize. So a 7-year-old boy is playing outside and there's a bomb explosion nearby and his sister brings him inside and he's got shrapnel underneath his arm. And he happens to be the son of a man named Osama. And it so happens that Osama actually lost a son in the same way 4 years prior, and his first son actually died. And he kind of talks matter-of-factly about it, like war is here. But it's obvious that there's other things going on emotionally for him. He can't work, so his brother takes care of him. They actually have he has another son. He had another son later after the first son passed away, and they actually gave him the same name. They've got a picture of the son that died on the wall, and they've had it altered to look like he had been graduating high school, I think. Yeah, college. Graduating college. And in here he talks about how it could all the money in the world and having new baby every day, it would never replace his memory of his first son. So anybody else have anything else to add?
Yeah, I would add that one of the daughters suffers from fits of rage and that they've had to get her psychological help or take her to a treatment center.
Mm-hmm.
For that.
Oh, and I missed that the brother actually helps to take care of his family since he's no longer able to work.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So the father lost his job due to bad health and has been receiving assistance from his brother.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of like the uncle, right? The uncle of the kid who died.
Yeah, that's pretty good. That's basically everything that I put in there.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's important to mention like where it's happening too.
Oh yeah, Israel, right?
Yeah, to put it like that they live in Gaza,
Mm-hmm.
threatening, under the threat of Israeli air attacks. I think that's probably relevant to add in there too.
Yes.
Okay, so the next one is list any principles or concepts from the course that can be applied in offering help or direction for this family. Someone want to start with one of the things they listed?
Sure.
I put down that that the continuous threat of danger is preventing the family from really processing the death of their son. I think their probably life is stressful, like all of the pileup of all of the continual stress is probably kind of putting a block on their being able to really process through that. That's one thought that I had.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, so pile up would be one.
Mm-hmm. Just because the reading this week was about that continuous threat, I think that that's probably something that should be put in there by name.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
One of the things that I listed would be the ABCX model. So they can systematically work through that crisis. I was speaking specifically about the crisis of their lost son, to be able to cognitively, figure out how to best cope and to kind of, not necessarily, it's hard with death to say move on, but just more of just to work through it as a family.
Yeah. I had listed the family typology model. so that they could look at what type of family they are and find out where they might be getting stuck at, like where they can build their different resiliences, like if they're not being flexible or if they don't have like routines or a good way of dealing with the problems. So if they could look at that and see like what's causing the problems and be able to fix it better.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not just cycling in the same cycle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's really key to note that they're kind of, like you said, they're stuck in that cycle. So they're making like daily adjustments just to survive, but they're not moving into adaptation where anything's actually changing like long term. They're just coping day to day and not looking towards like a big long, like life altering, family altering conclusion to the crisis.
I had that same thought, because if it was someone that we knew in our current cultural situation, I was thinking everything I listed wouldn't be, I mean, family therapy, you could show the family all of these different ways of coping, but in an area like that, it's not really that realistic for a war-torn country, especially culturally. I took Pakistan last semester. I don't know if any of you guys have taken it. And culturally, I don't think psychological interventions are that common or used. I mean, it didn't, especially as the whole family, you know. So, yeah.
Well, and it's hard to comprehend having that kind of a threat on you all the time. Like, how would you even have time to just like stop and even have feelings?
Oh yeah, how would you? Yeah, to like.
It feels like you'd be on like major adrenaline rush like all the time, every day. Like just like, oh, what are we gonna do to survive? Like, where am I gonna go? Like, where are my kids? And how can I keep them safe and protect them? And you know, all of this other stuff like that would just consume your mind. Like it would consume everything, I think.
So going along with what you just said, I put down family councils, because I think that would be a good way to say like, okay, what's our plan? Like, I think that makes you feel a lot more safe and secure, because they are under constant attack. If what their plan is, if this happens, who's going to take care of the kids, who's going to get medical attention. You know, I think it's just so nice if you have a plan in your family about how to handle the situations before they happen. So I think you could do that through a family council.
Yep. Another thing I wrote too is learn about how stress affects the mind and the body. I think that would be beneficial, because they are under constant stress, and kind of like you were saying, Brittany, but to kind of know how their bodies are reacting and kind of why might help them to deal better, to cope better with it. It's not going to eliminate it, but understand why they're sweating or having nightmares or whatever, I guess.
That's true.
Yeah. So I think that's kind of like mindfulness, you know, if they practice the deep breathing, like, oh, I'm feeling this stress in my body, let me take 5 minutes and do deep breathing techniques or something like that. And I also thought for that they could use for a sister who was having like fits of rage and anger, that she would benefit from mood logs. Of being able to talk about why she's angry and see if she can change her thought process.
And then another one that I wrote was the power of religion, which we kind of talked about. And I think that one is super beneficial with their culture, because it is so religious. And I think that that's probably already implied because they're so religious. But we learned about the benefit of religion.
I wish there was more in the class about that, actually.
I was kind of surprised that there wasn't, because we are religious.
I know. Like there was that one little chapter that kind of focused on like when we were learning about resilience, it kind of talked a little bit about that, but it feels like it's largely missing from all of this. But it's hard for us to probably comprehend not being able to rely on the Savior, or you know, I mean, I'm guessing these people are probably Islamic, so they're probably, you know, but that is such a huge part of coping. So you're right.
And I think the last one that I listed was the resiliency model, just teaching resilience. And I think that they are already having to show resilience because they're adapting to their environment, but that might be somewhat beneficial. And it kind of goes back to the mindfulness and the religion. It's kind of encompassed, like umbrellas all of that. But
Yeah, I think part of the resilience is like looking for the positive opportunities that they have in there and seeing what ways the family is looking for the positive. Like, oh, is it bringing us closer together? Is this problem, looking for the blessings that they have through their problems.
yeah, I agree with that. Does anyone have anything else?
I don't think so.
Alrighty, list.
Getting all that written down.
I was just looking at it to see how she was doing. We can
I'm
always.
making tiny notes as we
That's
go.
what
I mean,
was
I can't
just do
capture everything, but
I would just bullet the main things like you're doing.
yeah.
And then we can just come back in and fill it.
Yeah, if we want to add our own little narratives about it, that's fine. I don't think that the
Yeah.
teacher expects that anyway.
Yeah.
All right, so list relevant risks, dangers the family and its members face.
Death
Yeah, that was mine too. I was like,
and injury
That's a
and
good one.
loss of property.
yeah,
Because what would they do if all of a sudden they're homeless, you know?
yeah.
So property loss, I think it's definitely a risk.
Yeah.
Not an emotional risk, but
I thought the youngest son was at risk because he was named after the oldest one who died.
right?
And that's just a lot of pressure. Just
Thinking about that too.
yeah, that's a lot of pressure on a kid to have to live up to this kid who died. I don't know.
Well, not
That
only
seems stressful to me.
he's supposed to live up to a son who died at age 7 or whatever. But they've digitally remastered his photo to show him graduated college. Like they already had these expectations for a son who passed away, and now how many of those expectations are going to be pushed on a son who might,
Yeah, exactly.
Incredible.
I put down risk of financial distress because if something was to happen to the brother that's supporting them, when you rely on other people, if something happens to the other people, then you're ruined.
Yeah.
Well,
So-
not to mention that the brother is dealing with his own issues. His brother had a daughter or something that was injured, or
A son that was injured also.
yeah. So I mean, he's already
Yeah.
died. Eventually, like, I can't help you anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I think the risk is the constant anxiety of being attacked. Always the risk of always being worried and not being able to have the downtime.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I think they also risk being stuck in the past because it seems like they're really focused on the death of the first son and what life could have been like for him. So just being stuck in the past and not being able to move past that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, like we talked about in the previous thing, just the fact they don't have time to grieve. They are just constantly under attack.
Yeah.
I was thinking about it, and I understand what the family was thinking and how they wanted to name the younger son after the older son where they have the same name to keep the name in the family. But I wonder if that is kind of hard for them to like almost let go because there's just always that constant reminder. And I wonder if it's like beneficial to help them or if it would hurt them in the end because like they say his name over and over and then that's just something that
Like a constant
they
reminder.
can never closure about.
So not getting closure is a risk.
Yeah.
And I also put they're at risk of just being filled with anger at the other at Israel, because that's what they said. The ones that, I want to get them and I want to get revenge. And so I feel like they're just going to end up being always feeling angry. And, that's not a happy place to be.
Another one I wrote was a risk of relocation. Culturally, they don't really do that, and plus his brother is the one that takes care of him, and he has a home there, regardless of if it's getting bombed or not. And relocation with his inability to work, and if there was distance between him and his brother, that could really be a hardship for them to try to overcome.
Yeah.
Even if it eliminated the war and the bombs, it might.
Yeah.
They can handle.
Well, and there's his health problems. Like, I mean, if he's had 2 surgeries, like there's a very high likelihood that he could die early.
Yeah, because I think it said his kidneys were bad, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So what would happen to and there? I read the article a couple of times, but it doesn't ever mention the mom, does it?
I know,
no, which is kind of
No.
surprising.
Yeah.
but not really culturally. Women, they stay in the house. So a lot
Well,
of
I
times,
guess that's true.
house without a man, they don't work. They don't.
Mm-hmm.
That's true.
Because I was reading, I listed as a risk or a danger divorce as one, but then I thought
Where's the mom?
they don't really divorce in Israel, as far as I know. It's you're with them forever.
Mm-hmm.
I put poor psychological health in addition to the physical health, and we already, it already lists about the daughter,
Yeah.
that constant stress. And then I also put they run the risk of strained relationships because of the relationship he has with his brother, where his brother is helping him out, and there might not be anything that he can pay back, and so eventually his brother might be wore out, might just be done.
Yep.
Law of reciprocity. You can't pay him back. His brother might give up. Be like, I've got my own stuff, man. Does anyone have any other ones?
No.
Okay. So the next one is list relevant opportunities presented to this family as a result of this crisis. I had a hard time finding any.
Well, there is the opportunity that they can grow closer together.
Yeah, I wrote that
You
one.
know, if they
I wrote
rely and if they rely on the relationships that are there, you know. I mean, it sounds like he got his daughter help, even though it might not be like culturally like super acceptable. I mean, he definitely got the help that she needed, it sounded like. So there's like that pooling together of like emotional resources for the members of the family that are left.
Yeah.
So that's
I
I
think
also put that the community could draw closer together since they're all having that shared experience. Like there could be like a sense of like
sense of
camaraderie or togetherness or like bonding over trial in your community.
Mm-hmm.
I guess that's all I could think of. That's the only two. If it didn't.
I put that they could recognize that they still have children and focus on them, because
Oh, that's
they
good.
do. They do have their other children still, and they can be grateful for that. Grateful that the son who did get hit by the sharp nail, that it wasn't worse than it was.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I put the same thing, that they can pull together and bond as a family.
Yeah.
I wrote that they are given an opportunity to teach family resilience and gratitude. Was it? I don't remember what it was that we read or something. Or maybe it was the discussion board prompts. Anyway, it was discussion board prompts. Like, why do we celebrate hardship? Because, it can kind of teach you about blessings. And so it's easy for me to say that from where I'm sitting, but this is an opportunity for them to really be grateful for what they have, and kind of goes back to what Annie was saying about family. Be grateful for the kids they have left and the opportunities that they have left. Mm-hmm. Eventually. I don't think that gratitude will come in the middle of it, but you never know.
Well, they can see opportunities by realizing that the oldest son that had died from getting his arm injured, he died, and then that same situation happened to the younger brother, and his arm was injured, but he didn't die. And so they could see that that was a blessing, that child.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a really good point. And the other one I wrote is that they have relationships with extended family where they live. So they're in the same community. Even though that's at risk, but still it's there. Alrighty, so the next one, unless someone has anything else.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Note important relationship considerations.
There was a lot of these.
Mm-hmm.
I listed a lot.
3, I kind of like clustered them.
5. I have 6 different relationships. The first one that I wrote was the relationship between the father and his kids.
Yep.
Just that he could become overprotective and prevent them from experiencing whatever kind of a childhood they can, because he's worried about their safety.
Mm-hmm.
That's one consideration.
Mm-hmm. And I wrote too that one that goes along with that is that he needs to make sure that the loss of his first son doesn't hinder the relationship he has with them. Mm-hmm. As in, like, fostering healthy, not your brother would have never,
Yeah.
Yeah. I also put that he doesn't put value on more than one child. Like, he might just value more the one that was named after the oldest one because he's special, because he has the same name, or he might put value on the one that lived versus the other ones that are struggling. Just making sure that each child feels like they're of equal value and worth. Just because sometimes the one kid that got injured and lived gets all this special attention because, oh, we almost lost you. And so the other kids could become jealous of that relationship, or that jealous of the attention. And I guess that kind of goes with siblings, like that they could feel jealous of one of the other kids, one of their other brothers or sisters. Like, I'm sure that goes with the siblings too. Like, the brother who's named after the one who died, the other siblings could be jealous that has this name and is looked upon as, the kind of hero in the family.
For sure.
Well, and along with that, I also thought of the relationship between the father and the daughter, the one that was having the rage and or the mental psychiatric problems. Just because that in that culture, women are valued lower than men anyway. And so with her main value being one of being able to marry her off, it sounds kind of awful, but like, is he going to look down on her because maybe she's not going to be as... Does that make sense? Am I making that up?
No, it makes sense.
Like I said, I took that class last semester, and that's exactly how it works, is you have daughters and then you marry them off.
Exactly. So if somebody perceives her as being mentally ill, they're not going to want to marry her, which is a problem for him in the long run.
Because they're seeing
he treat her differently because of that, and then be resentful of her mental illness because it's lowering her value of, like, her actual value to him.
Yep. And then it's just a burden, something else you're going to have to take care of.
Yeah.
When he already can't work.
Right.
Another one I wrote was, we've already talked about, is Osama and his brother. His brother assists him due to his inability to work. But his brother also suffered from the same rocket and has a permanently damaged child. So it's important that he finds ways to help his brother in order to kind of that law of reciprocity make it so it's not a one-sided relationship where he has no power and then, heavily on his brother and his brother can't support him any longer.
Yeah.
Did you guys see the text from Donna?
Yeah.
No.
Okay. And then one more I had was Osama in the community, which we talked about before. But he can find strength and support from others who are experiencing the same. And it kind of creates an us versus them scenario where us is his community versus them, the people who are attacking, which can be helpful.
So even though we don't hear about the wife or the mom, that relationship, I think, is always at risk when there's all of this different things going on, because there's so much focus on the kids and the things that they're dealing with, that the relationship between them two might be a challenge. It might be strained because they have to spend so much time focusing on their children.
I was gonna say.
Well, especially if the wife mom is living and in their home, then imagine the kind of caregiving that she's having to give. Or the husband that's that ill, and the son that's injured, and the daughter that's got some mental problems that she's dealing with. That would be very trying as a mom to be dealing with all of that. I feel like you're being really stretched very thin.
Yes.
Another one I just thought of too would be the importance of Osama having a relationship with relief programs in the area, provided either by his country or other countries, especially with his plight. It'd be important to keep track of those, and that's something he can do to try to, find aid and support for his family.
Well, and now that you bring that up, like, what would be his relationship, like, even if it's not a personal relationship, but what kind of relationship does he have with government? And how does that affect his ability to father and parent his children? Because we all have a relationship with government because of their interaction. Like, will he be resentful because he doesn't feel like they're keeping him safe, or is he going to resent the Israeli government for doing the bombing at all?
Mhm.
So in a less immediate sense, I think that that's probably something that's part of it as well.
For sure. Another one too that I just thought of too would be a relationship with Osama and God, whatever form that might take, can be very helpful to him as he's healing and processing the loss of his son and possibly the loss of other people he loves or knows.
Mm-hmm.
He may become resentful for the hardship and stuff. And
Yep.
do you have any others, anybody?
I don't.
Recommended coping strategies. I had a hard time figuring out what they were looking for on this one.
Well, I thought one that they could use that they talked about in the resilience was that they could share stories of their son who died or write a memory book of him just to kind of allow them that grieving process and to come to kind of closure. Another one that they talked about was like using humor in situations that are stressful, so if they could find some way to find humor throughout their trials to overcome their feelings of negativity.
Right.
I think one that was said before that would work for this one is coping with the daughter's illness is having that mood log. And so I think even if the whole family kept a mood log or had like the family council, that way is a way of coping and talking about it instead of just being silent.
Yeah.
Good point.
Well, I think one of their coping strategies, like you said, was like keeping his memory alive through the pictures that they had on the wall. And I mean, although we might not look at that as like a healthy coping strategy, it's still one that they were using.
Yeah.
And having his name in the house and things like that. So I don't know if it's necessarily a recommended coping strategy, but it's one that they were using and found some kind of comfort in.
I think the most dangerous about that form of coping is it's a material possession in a war-torn country. You know what I mean? One bomb, one fire, one evacuation, and that's left behind. If that's, that can be another devastation. It feel like another loss of the same son if, they've really invested a lot of emotion into that photo.
That's true. Yeah.
I wrote that they need to have a flexible but cohesive family roles. They need to be flexible due to the constant threat of loss, but at the same time they need to be cohesive in order to kind of support each other in their roles.
I put encourage the kids to ask questions about what's happening around them and seek to find some kind of meaning in the experience. Just because if they have little kids, I mean, if that kid is little and they have a new baby, the new Ahmed had to have been just little, a couple years old, So just help them try to understand, just like we would with our kids, as they see what's on the news and see what's going on around, and they want to understand. So ask questions. Let's talk it through. Let's try and find some way to make this relevant and meaningful for you.
I just realized that youngest son, this is all he's going to know up to this point is war. And so back to Annie's, telling stories, that's something they could use to cope, is to tell stories of before war. They'll have these stories, good times, and orally share, those sorts of things. Because otherwise that young son is only going to know hardship and devastation and bombs and it's crazy.
That'd be weird to be on the other side of that, wouldn't it? Like, we hear stories from our grandparents and stuff about war because we live in a time of peace, so peaceful. Imagine how different it would be to be on the other side of that. I remember when things were nice and quiet, and it'd be so strange.
Yeah.
I also put relying on faith and prayer.
Yeah. That's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
And then one that Annie mentioned earlier would be mindfulness. Sorry, I forgot what the word was. Mindfulness could be a coping strategy too.
Yeah. Sometimes it's hard to know the difference between the coping strategies and the concepts from the class. They're kind of like the same, and
Yeah.
That's why I was confused why they're asking, because I felt like that was asking the same question we'd already answered before.
Well, the thing that I've noticed is that we're learning a lot about the models and about the, like, it just doesn't feel like we've been given a lot of coping strategies, because every case study, it's like family council, mindfulness, mood logs.
yeah.
Those are like the only 3 coping things we've really learned about. We've learned a lot about stress and crisis, but we haven't been given a lot of tools, really. It doesn't
The application part of it.
Yeah, like how do you actually apply these tools now, right?
Yes, yeah, like this is wrong and this is wrong and this is wrong and this is wrong, but here's one thing that could help, but I mean, family councils and stuff only can go so far, really. Like, I don't want tools, I want stuff, I want ideas.
I feel like in our culture, because we are surrounded by faith so much and we rely on our faith, I feel like our coping strategies, which I don't know in this class if they just think like we're going to use these and that's why they don't talk about it as much, but a lot what the prophet and apostles say, like having family council, like family home evening, and like reading our scriptures, and like those are our almost like coping religious strategies. That makes sense. Interesting.
I totally agree with that. That I kind of feel like, oh great, I know a bunch of models and theories and stuff, but if I were, 5 years down the road, hopefully doing what I want to do therapy-wise with a family, you can't just be like, okay, let me teach you about the ABCX model.
Exactly. Let me show you where you are on this continuum. I don't know what to do about it, but I can definitely tell you where you are.
That's true. Well, that's why I thought watching the therapy session was like really cool. I liked that.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, I wish we could have done this like more and more, because I actually like learned from just watching him more than I think I learned from the other things.
The interaction and how to communicate effectively, and
for sure.
All right, so we've got 2 more. Does unless anybody had any other coping strategies?
No.
All right, recommendation to supporting involved parties.
I just thought maybe that they could help the father find jobs, or help him fill out applications if he needed to, or just let him be aware of jobs that might be available. Because it didn't seem like he wasn't able to work.
Well, even just going off of what you're saying is not only like helping them find jobs available and helping with that process, but what about finding like programs to help with grief, so that way he can get past that point because he was feeling sick,
Yeah.
So
I'm not sure like what kind of programs they have there. That would be the interesting thing to be. I feel like, I don't know. It'd be interesting to know, like, yeah.
I put down that the brother, the brother didn't try and trivialize or minimize the grief and loss of the dad of Osama. He just was really supportive, and you think that was 4 years ago, and the brother is still looking at the brother with compassion, and like he lost a lot. Like I can't even like. It just as I was reading that paragraph that they were quoting him talking about him, it was just you could just tell it was just so full of love and compassion for his brother that had lost so much, and so I just put that it continue to be compassionate with the loss with the brother's loss. So I think that that's something that they can keep doing, is just try to be patient and loving.
Yeah.
When you talk about the brother, you're talking about like the dad and the uncle, right? Sorry,
Right.
I can't remember.
Yeah.
The uncle.
Right.
I think this may have gone in coping, but I put it under this, but finding ways to help the kids feel safe and secure in their daily life by setting up routines and roles, or making a family safety plan. But just like having them have a daily routine that they would have, or
Consistency.
consistency.
Predictability.
because they're so unstable that it would be good to have something that was predictable in their life. They can offer to help take care of kids if their father's health is bad, or bring meals. See, I don't know how much. I wish I knew more about the culture. Like, is that like, do you take meals to people? It's kind of harder to do on this one.
I know. I also put not judging him because of his illness and inability to work, or his reliance on assistance. Like, they're a very very proud culture. Like, there's a lot of pride in their masculinity and patriarchy and things like that. So not to treat him like he's less of a person because he's reliant.
One of them that I wrote was to protect religious beliefs and the right to worship. Because culturally, I know that is a big deal. And especially in a stressful situation, it can bring communities together, people together, families together. And I know that, I learned about Pakistan, which is kind of the same, but it's, I know that a lot of times they believe that hardship comes because you've been sinful. And so it would be natural for them, if they're Muslim, to turn towards God in this time because it's, it's a punishment. So they need to start to repent and find a solution in order to make it stop. So I also wrote, they really need family counseling, which I laughed when I wrote it down. But in our culture, that would be a recommendation. That's supporting. Way of supporting the family is to provide them with family counseling and possibly individual counseling for that dad, as well as the son that eventually probably will need it, who was named after the deceased son, and the daughter.
One thing that I thought of that would be important for the family is because they're in this warlike situation where people get injured and family members pass away, is having like almost an emergency kit, an emergency plan, kind of how we mentioned before. If something does happen that's serious, they have the means of support and like food, say if like the parents were to pass away or something like that.
That's
Food storage. Right? Yeah.
I don't have any other ones. Alrighty, so then the last one is additional resources you may provide or suggest.
Yeah. I put, find other families who've lost children or have dealt with that they can relate to and talk to.
Like a support group?
Yeah.
Even if it's not a formal one.
Yeah.
I put prayer and spending time as a family.
Book of Mormon. We're just kidding.
Yeah.
That
General conference.
Yeah. I think, one of them could be an outlet. I don't know how, this might be super ridiculous even, but find an outlet. Find something they can do to kind of promote mindfulness, whether it be writing or drawing or coloring or, photography. I don't know. Something.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
If it, like some kind of hobby that gets their mind off of it, it could even be like a family hobby that they enjoy.
Well, in that situation, it would be so important to create some kind of an identity outside of crisis. Like, yeah, we're dealing with all of this, but we all play Scrabble together or whatever.
Yeah.
Just something that they have in common that kind of gets their mind off of everything else that's going on.
Yeah.
This one's kind of hard.
Yeah.
The interesting thing about like Islam and they don't have leaders. Like they don't have church leaders. There's no prophet. There's no bishops. Like there's no priests or it's so individual. Like there's no congregation really. So even from a religious standpoint, I don't know who they would turn to.
Well, they have mosques and stuff, so they could turn to one another, and they have like people in mosques who are more knowledgeable. I don't remember what they call them.
Well, there's the imams. That's who leads the prayers, but
my
understanding of Islam is that there's not.
It's mostly routines, you know.
It's just, yeah, it's kind of like just do your prayers and give your alms and do your thing. And, you know, so I think that'd be so hard to be in a religion where
That's
there's
where
not like an
community
authority figure.
comes in.
That's where what?
I was just saying maybe that's where community comes in because they don't have more of like a figure. They have just like these routines, and so maybe that's how they band together is through the community and like through each other.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't have anything else.
I think that's probably good, though. We listed some good things.
All right. Anything else to add before I stop the broadcast? We can hang out here for just a second while I get this link. Anything else?
I think that was pretty thorough.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I'm going to stop the broadcast, and then Annie, I'm going to paste the little link into your worksheet. So hang on for just a second, okay?